Hey Matt, I need you to change the one and only password that gives access to our entire mainframe. Okay, bye.
What? Okay, fine. You'd think we'd have two-step authentication by now. Alright, enter old password. Phil Spencer sucks with a terrible password anyway. Let's try Gym Rules Xbox Drools 80085.
Password too similar to previous password.
Okay, let's try no red rings here 69.
Password too similar to previous password.
Oh my god. Okay, how about Master Chief Jim 420?
Password too similar to previous password.
Okay, you know what? 1, 2, 3, 4, and
Password accepted.
hopefully that doesn't come back on me somehow. You guys ready? Lobby up.
Hey guys, lobby up.
GG's, lobby up.
Dude, we gotta lobby up.
Lobby up.
Hey, should we lobby up?
Yo, lobby up.
Lobby up, y'all.
Hey, let's grab a beer. Lobby up.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Lobby Up, where you have Lewis and Matt in the house today.
What's up, guys?
So today we're going to have a very special episode. This was not in our plans to record, but the topic was just so crazy and with so many implications for the gaming community as a whole. Whether you play on Xbox, whether you play on PlayStation or Nintendo or PC, this news could potentially affect you. We are talking about the Insomniac/Sony leaks that happened a week ago?
Less than a week ago, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So much information has leaked out. We decided to let this information simmer just a little bit. So much has been discovered post leak. So much of the topic has been discussed among the community. So we figured now is the right time for us to kind of put our 2 cents into this.
Absolutely. Yeah, we wanted to give it time to simmer and kind of think about it between ourselves because, you know, as people that talk about games, one of the hot topics in our community is going to be whether or not you want to talk about leaks, right? So, I mean, bro, I know you've seen a lot about this with some of the other people that talk about games and whether or not they want to talk about this.
So I have to say, man, and I'm very passionate about this particular topic. If you consider yourself a gaming journalist, which those 2 words together always make me laugh.
It's almost an oxymoron.
Yeah, it's like you're a journalist and a gamer and you talk about games for a living. I mean, I wouldn't consider us gaming journalists. We're just 2 dudes that love
enthusiasts, you know?
We're enthusiasts. I love that. We're enthusiasts. We love talking about games and we love to present games to you guys. But if you're a gaming journalist on a payroll for these journalistic companies, you have the duty, you have the responsibility to present to the masses what is happening in gaming news. So when I started hearing certain writers from like GameSpot, who was it? Greg Miller, I believe. He runs a podcast. It's really big, saying they weren't going to cover these leaks. And they were on some sort of imaginary high horse on like, oh, well, this information was hacked and we are not going to be a part of leaking all this information. All I can think was BS, man.
Right.
BS. Because when Capcom had their hack, and it was a massive hack, it wasn't just like, oh, you know, it wasn't like Xbox who accidentally leaked their own stuff to those
That
idiots.
was their own fault.
But like, you know, Capcom had a hack. GTA 6, when they hacked all of the early development stuff for them, nobody batted an eye.
Sunk their teeth in.
Yeah.
Instantly.
So to me, it's what's the difference here? Because if it's, you know, if it's the hacking thing, you look at Capcom. If it's that it's a leak information, well, you look at GTA 6 and you look at the Xbox leaks.
Right. Where do you draw the line, right? As somebody who talks about gaming and everything gaming, where do you draw the line about what you're going to cover, what you're not going to cover? I guess the argument is that this was like an attack on Insomniac, that this information was not their fault, that it was like leaked to the public, that somebody attacked them. But then you have to wonder, if you're this huge corporation and you have all of these development companies with you, how, and especially with your market being surrounding technology, how do you not have better cybersecurity at this point? How is it that some group of people who you know exists, like everybody knows that this ransom group exists, how are you not prepared for this type of thing to happen in the first place? Because if you are really, really that worried and upset about your information being stolen, leaked, whatever at this point, are you protecting it the way that you should? Are you putting enough resources into protecting that information? Is it someone else's fault that you weren't protecting it? I mean, I don't know. I think that can be, a case can be made that maybe this is just, it's something that is going to be a hard lesson for Insomniac to be investing it more into in the future,
Yeah, no, for sure. And here's the thing. Insomniac was definitely hacked, but this is a subsidiary of Sony, and Sony has been hacked way too many times to count, more than any of the big three.
Yeah.
It's crazy that this continues to happen to them as a company. And like you said, they have billions of dollars. Can we just get a nice, like, a cybersecurity team to make sure that this stuff doesn't happen?
Right.
But the thing is, it happened, and there is so much information that came out of it, and we're going to cover it because we don't have a high horse. We don't even have a horse.
No, can't afford that.
It's just us two and some equipment. So we're going to cover the hell out of this.
Thank God we have no important files to protect.
Oh, absolutely. You know what? If you want to hack me, go ahead and hack away all my debt, please.
Please.
But, and actually, before we continue, there is one person I wanted to, I'm going to give a shout out to someone with millions of followers, but I can't help but to just be completely impressed by how Tom Warren handled all this leak information and the hypocrisy that I felt I was looking at with these news outlets, these gaming news outlets that didn't want to cover the leak. So Tom Warren, he's a senior editor at The Verge, and he's big on PC gaming, console gaming. He covered the Microsoft, Activision, Blizzard stuff. He's who I was following the whole time, and he was literally on Twitter just calling people out who were like, "Oh, we're not going to cover the Insomniac leaks," and he was literally in their comment sections just calling them out, like, "Hey, didn't you cover the GTA leaks? Hey, didn't you cover the Capcom leaks? Hey, you were there for the Microsoft leaks." Keep that same energy, people.
Just fighting the good fight.
So I have to just put it out there in the ether. Shout out to Tom Warren, man, for being a real one. If we ever do become gaming journalists, I hope we have the same integrity that I saw him having during this whole situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like you said, we don't have a high horse yet, but one day we might have a pony, and I hope that we ride it in the right direction.
A Sony pony, if you will. So let's go ahead and move on to Wolverine, man. So what were your impressions looking at all that Wolverine information?
Honestly, as somebody who plays games and also just being a gaming enthusiast, my first reaction is excitement. I mean, you can't help but look at all this information and kind of just obsess over it a little bit. And in a way, I know this sucks for Insomniac, but you get to see some of these extra little inspirational little side notes about how they got inspired to make this scene, how they got inspired to create this level of detail. And I get excited about that. I'm really excited to play this game. It doesn't make me think anything less of it by any means. So I would just say my initial response has just been, I'm really stoked to actually have it in my hands.
Yeah, I mean, granted, some people do have it in their hands. So apparently, for those who don't know, there is a playable build that you can play of Wolverine online right now.
Yeah.
The FBI will probably knock at your door if you download it. So we're not condoning piracy. We're not condoning that you go out and downloading it. We are just telling you guys that there is a build of this game out there in the evening.
Right. I mean, it's not like you can just pop it into your PC, but you have to have an actual test kit, dev kit, to be able to even use it. And even from there, where you jailbreak devices and whatnot, you have to that's the foundation of being able to access it. So yeah, highly don't recommend doing that, but it does exist out there in the ether if you didn't know.
PlayStation police. But so based off what I saw, the game is looking pretty damn good. I mean, listen,
Yeah.
it's still in development.
Right.
There's still going to be a lot of development time that's going to go into this game before it's released in 2025. But I will have to echo something that I've read a lot about in regards to Wolverine. It looks it looks a lot like Spider-Man still.
It does. It does look a
And
lot like Spider-Man. There was moments where I was seeing some of the footage. I don't know if they're using some of the same models or some of the same animations, but there was a moment where you're watching Wolverine cross like a wire, like in a
literally,
stealthy
bro,
moment.
literally what I was thinking of.
It looks exactly like when Spider-Man is doing that wire on like one of the new moves in Spider-Man 2 where you can like just create a wire going across. It looks exactly like that.
Yeah, that's the exact scene I had in my head. I was like, ooh, like that looks literally copy and paste from Spider-Man. And
Yeah.
people have been screaming and yelling, oh no, like Insomniac is completely bankrupt in terms of creativity. And to those people, I gotta say, like, chill out, guys.
No. No.
chill, chill. This is a normal thing where
Right.
they use assets from existing games to cover, to cover those development costs and save on time. You want this game in 2025, right? Well, there has to be
And to be fair, like how much different are you going to make a big muscular superhero look different crawling across a wire, whether he has spider powers or Wolverine powers?
Yeah.
It's not going to be like oh, he's actually a little bit more buff here, so I gotta make him, I don't know, like more wobbly. Like it's not going to be much different. It doesn't matter. If it was something like he started thwipping people, then we got a problem. But like,
Oh my god, you imagine.
I don't really know how much it matters about him crawling across the wire. It was just immediately like, oh, huh. Like I made that connection.
It was jarring for me, at least. That
Yeah.
one particular part, I was like, whoa, like that literally looks like Spider-Man going across the
Yeah.
wire. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but what is a big deal to me, and this, we're going to get into this a little later as we continue to cover more of the leaked information, was just how much Insomniac is going to be involved with Marvel properties.
Yes.
So that leads me into the whole X-Men thing. So that is their secret new IP that they've been working on.
Yeah.
They have the X-Men games.
Yeah. I mean, we got like a whole timeline of games that are supposed to be coming out over like the next like 13 years.
It's kind of
I
crazy.
mean, it's pretty overwhelming. I mean, it feels like back in the day when the Marvel Cinematic Universe was being announced in phases, and you kept like seeing like a giant chunk. This is like that times 3 because it's like it's literally a decade.
You'd look at dates that don't even look real to you. You're like 2035. That doesn't look real. That's not a real year.
I've been dead for 5 years. But yeah, so you see in this timeline it looks like it was presented at a keynote or something. It looks like we're going to be getting not only Wolverine, but we're going to be getting X-Men, and then apparently some other new IP that no one knew about is also going to be apparently coming out in like 2031. We're supposed to be getting Venom games. We're supposed to be getting all this other stuff. So moving on into X-Men first, because there's a lot to talk about here.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder, and also kind of worried, when they say X-Men, what are they going to do about that? Are we going to be having Peter Parker, Miles Morales, Spider-Man 2 situation where they're trying to balance multiple X-Men? Or is this going to be like Marvel's, what is that game that flopped? Marvel's Superheroes?
The Avengers game that who was Crystal Dynamics, I think, made that.
Yeah, and it just like totally flopped. And I'm getting a little bit, I mean, obviously Insomniac is a different beast and can tackle this in their own special way. I respect that. But it does have me worried a little bit because there's not a lot of games out there that tackle playing multiple protagonists and balance it well.
Yeah. And granted, let's say they only let you play with 4 of the X-Men versus, where's the line? It's like,
right.
Where's the line where it's like, this is now an X-Men game because you can play with 6 characters versus this is not an X-Men game because you can only play with 4. Like,
right.
Where is that? Or is it as long as you play as Wolverine and Cyclops and Storm and what's his name, Nightcrawler? To me, those 4 make the X-Men, but that might not be for everybody. You might want to. I mean, I think the non-negotiable is Wolverine, but for some people,
which is why they start. I mean, clearly why they started with his own game, rightfully so. But yeah, it makes you wonder, like, are we all going to fight as a team together and they're just like your companion fighters? Are you going to be able to play as multiple of them? It's interesting to see what they're going to do with it. But the other big question that I have for all of this, and I think this fits more with our X-Men topic. How relevant is this going to be in 2029? Because I don't know about you, when it comes to the Marvel movies, I loved No Way Home, but after that movie, every single Marvel movie that's come out has just been, to me, significantly worse. Just more and more copy and paste. And I feel like I'm not the only one, and the hype is really dying out. This Spider-Man is great as well, and I love him. Everybody knows I love Spider-Man, but I also have that feeling a little bit with Spider-Man games. I'm like, Spider-Man's always going to be relevant, but how hype is he going to be in 2030? So
Yeah.
The question I have for this X-Men game, especially the timing, is this projected to succeed? And if so, how sure can you really be about that?
Well, it has to succeed first and foremost, because they need to sell a bare minimum of 6 million copies. If they don't sell that amount of copies, Disney can pull out from this deal and it could fall apart. So
Right, because we actually got the licensing terms.
yeah,
on this
it's
stuff.
crazy. It's insane, like looking at that deal. So it's gonna have to succeed,
Yeah.
no matter what. And if that means it's gonna be bundled with PlayStation 6s or whatever the heck is gonna be out during that
Right.
time, you're gonna see that bundled, like Spider-Man's bundled. They're gonna be price cutting that. This will be in your hands if you own a PlayStation, and if they're smart, this will also be released on PC.
It
So-
is. The licensing terms state that it can be released on PlayStation console and PC.
Oh no, I'm saying day one. Like,
Oh.
yeah. If they're smart,
Yeah.
it will also be released on PC day one.
I don't see that happening. I think
But-
they're gonna release it on PlayStation consoles and then eventually move it to PC. Maybe like earliest, like 6 months later.
Earliest. We are definitely foreshadowing a different conversation later in the day in terms of how Sony runs their business, because I know more than Sony.
Why can't they just see what we see?
I know more than the CEOs of a multi-billion-dollar company. So
Right.
So X-Men, I believe, even with the Marvel, going back to your original thought, with Marvel movies slowly losing their steam, and I must say, like, I held on a lot longer than most in terms of these Marvel movies. I can't keep up with all these Marvel movies, all these shows. Some of the shows were amazing. Some of the movies were pretty good. They were all right. They were great. But we are not looking at the same hype as the Avengers had in the 2010s.
Right.
But X-Men is a huge IP. It is ginormous. There is a group of loyal followers that have been around since like 1994, I think, is when granted, we're talking about the show, not the comic books. The comic books came out way earlier than that. But
Right.
the people who love the show are being treated very well right now, because, and we're talking about the animated X-Men 1990s cartoon, because we're getting a brand new X-Men cartoon on Disney Plus. That's going to add some hype to this game. X-Men are slowly being introduced into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's been hints of the X-Men in Miss Marvel, and big old spoilers for those who care about the Marvels, just putting that out there. The Beast made his debut in a post-credit scene in the Marvels.
Oh, okay. I haven't watched the Marvels at all, so I had no idea.
Yeah, fair. Granted, neither did I. But as a as a big old nerd, I follow all the nerd stuff. It was just posted everywhere when it happened. So, and apparently that was the only thing good that came out of that movie. So
It feels so sad that we're at this point in this Marvel Cinematic Universe that we're getting drip fed things that we actually want in a 2+ hours just to get like, oh, you're gonna get this soon, and it's just like for me, it has not been worth it.
yeah, can I get this sooner than soon? Can I get it now, please? Why couldn't the Beast just be in the whole movie? But X-Men is coming, and it looks like, based off this leak, Disney is poising the X-Men to just be a huge IP by the time this game comes out. Because this game succeeding is also a win for Disney on top of PlayStation as well. Disney wants the money to come in from the X-Men, and in order to get players for the X-Men game, they need to build the hype beforehand. So I do believe that the X-Men is big enough to carry these video games, but Disney has a lot of work to do, and Sony and Insomniac really need to make sure that this game is amazing out of the gate.
Right.
Because if they flop or if something happens, which a lot of people say, oh, they're too big to fail, you never know. No company is too big to fail. If they fail and mess this up, man, they could lose the Marvel licenses. And that'll be a huge blow to Sony, because that's what keeps a lot of people on PlayStation.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. So, and honestly, something else you're making me think about here is how the Wolverine game needs to do well before X-Men, because God forbid X-Men is poised to come out and Wolverine is just a total flop, which I can't imagine it being a total flop, but I don't know. Like, it's really too soon to tell whether or not it will disappoint expectations.
Yeah, and you guys, you cannot look at these leaks and be like, "Oh, this game sucks." You just can't do that, guys.
No.
The game is not done. It's not finished. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done in the models, in the story, in the gameplay. Give it some time and give it a chance, because like I said, a lot of people have voiced their disappointment with what they were seeing.
I don't really know how you can come to that conclusion seeing this, though.
Well, what I was going to say, which is kind of fair if you already don't like Wolverine and if you already don't like Spider-Man. If you don't like the Spider-Man games, I could see you like possibly not liking it, but you need to, like I tell my daughter, you got to try your food before you say you don't like it, guys. Come on.
Yeah, come on. And that's the thing too, though, is like, you're bringing up a good point here. If you don't like the IP, why would you think that you're going to really enjoy the game or really like what you're seeing in development? Because that's just kind of nonsensical. Like, I mean, when I was a kid and I had my N64, I didn't go buy the Toy Story game because I was like, oh, a cowboy and a spaceman? This is going to be real. No, I bought it because I was like, I love these movies. And it was a bomb game. Okay. It was so fun, by the way. But the point still stands here.
Yeah, for sure. And only time will tell. But hey, moving along, man. Spider-Man, which his name keeps coming up here, but Spider-Man and Insomniac are like peanut butter and jelly at this point. They just go together. Right. And let's go ahead and talk the future of Spider-Man.
There's a lot to discuss here, man. So there's two things to discuss, two different games, which we'll start with. The first one would be Spider-Man 3, obviously. So Spider-Man 3, there's something that was not part of this leak that needs to be discussed that Insomniac officially announced, which was that moving forward, Miles Morales is going to be the like main Spider-Man for these games. So with that in mind, you know, my immediate thought when they said that was like, okay, well, you've already introduced the idea of playing two like playable Spider-Men, and there's a crap ton more Spider-Man. So I'm wondering how much they were going to use Peter Parker. Like immediately I was like, maybe they're going to be moving away from that a little bit, which I'm okay with. I like the idea of having like different Spider-Man, Spider-Women, who I can play, right?
Spider animals.
Yeah, dude, if I can play as Spider-Cat on any mission, dude, 10 out of 10 game right there.
Absolutely.
But that immediately leads into this leak about potentially being able to play as Silk, who has been gaining a lot of attention in the comic book community. She looks pretty fun to play as, I'm not gonna lie. I'm pretty excited about that.
We're getting Silk in the new Sonyverse Spider-Man movie, Madam Web. She's going to be in there. So also benefits Sony for Silk to start being pushed out into the limelight. You know, if Silk performs, if Madam Web performs well and Silk gets that exposure along with the other Spider Women that are going to be in this movie, then that will build more hype to the video games, and then they'll definitely hit that 6 million mark that they need to keep hitting in order to keep making these games.
Right.
I love Peter Parker. Peter Parker is my man, but there's plenty of other Spider people that I'm willing to play as. So like, I don't see that as a negative. I hope he doesn't disappear. I hope he plays a major role in these games, maybe as a mentor figure.
Yes, exactly. I'm thinking like an Obi-Wan, you know, to kind of like lead the new Spider people into the universe, and I could see that being really cool.
And I would be for that. Dude, give me some Spider-Man 2099 because I want Miguel O'Hara needs his own game. People, come on. Do it.
I just want to bite and poison people. I want to do it so bad.
I just want to bite him. I mean, I mean, let's talk about Spider-Man Online.
This is now becoming a confessional episode. But no, dude, like, and like another thing that got leaked here is the potential for Green Goblin, which finally in this new universe of baddies, we finally get Venom, everybody loves to put on a pedestal as like the main like no, this is Peter Parker's Joker.
Yeah,
okay,
I agree 100% with that. I'm beyond excited to see Green Goblin finally make his debut into these games. It's insane that it's taken this long.
Yes, it really is. And you know, honestly, I think maybe some of the developers in the past, and even Insomniac included, knew that it just wasn't the right time in the beginning to include a Green Goblin, because Green Goblin is something that you have to build up to. It's not round one for Peter Parker. It really isn't. Maybe you can see him early on, but taking him on, this is meant for a later game like the third. So I'm really happy that it's coming up in this installment.
For sure. So I think this is a perfect segue to talk about Spider-Man Online. I know I made the joke earlier.
Dude.
I know I talked about that earlier, but it is time, because that to me is one of the craziest things to come out of this leak, the potential to that.
Yes.
But before we get into Spider-Man Online, if you're still here, thank you.
Yes.
And if you're still here, please like and subscribe.
For the love
Please.
of God, please. Please.
We are hungry.
Might we have some more likes and subscribes?
So yeah, like and subscribe if you love what we're doing. Comment, download on Spotify. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. So moving on, Spider-Man Online, man. What do you make of a Spider-Man Online?
So honestly, man, obviously we're huge fans of Spider-Man here in the studio. I have like already discussed a little bit in this episode that Marvel, in my opinion, especially like a multiverse or just everything going on with the jumbled up chaos that they are trying to create in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, has just kind of fallen off for me. I have loved the Spider-Verse movies, and
For sure.
I think that like a Spider-Verse game or something akin to that, where you get to create your own Spider-Person and you get to go around, fight bad guys, level up, that could be fun. I don't know how much it's going to be that answer to what they in these leaks are calling like GTA Spider-Man. You know, like I don't really know that it is that answer.
So let's go ahead and put it out there. I believe the only way that a Spider-Man Online can possibly work is with the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
There is no universe where this takes place in a single universe. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
There's only so many characters that you can be in a single Spider universe. So
Right.
if you open up the gates to the Spider-Verse, you get to I believe you can make your own Spider-Man. Like,
Yeah.
make up your own universe, make your own Spider-Verse, or I'm sorry, your own Spider-Man in your own Spider-Verse. That's the only way that's going to work. And I do believe that would be amazing. Honestly, that would be so cool, having your own headcanon for Spider-Man, like your own Spider-Man, Spider-Woman, Spider-Dog, Spider-whatever.
Yeah.
My only concern with that possibility is how much can the Spider-Verse offer for this game to make players stick with it
Yes.
for a long period of time.
That's what I'm getting at, is like totally cool to be able to create your own Spider-Person. That's awesome. Super cool. What I'm worried about is how do they get past day one? How do they get the players to continue playing this game? What is the drive? What are you grinding for? What are you fighting against? What is the gameplay? Is it just raids where you fight a boss? Are you just like going around New York and you can fight some crime here and there like you do in a Spider-Man game? Because if so, that's not much different than the Spider-Man game, other than adding just the online component to it. It's not enough to reel people back in. So it's the question of what are they playing for? And you already know, and I think that maybe I'm a little jaded, but I just feel like online game and microtransactions just are like peanut butter and jelly at this point.
Absolutely.
I'm wondering where where that's going to come in. Like, there's not going to be a battle pass for this because it's more like GTA in the sense of like an open world type of like environment. So are you buying skins? Are you buying content? Are you buying the ability to get into those, big boss battles or whatever? So that's the big questions that I have. Like, what is the gameplay here?
Well, I don't mean to be the Mr. Pessimist here, but I'm going to go ahead and say this is more realistic. If you are creating your own Spider-Man, they're going to capitalize on hiding, and this is obviously like speculation, they're going to hide a lot of content for your suits behind, I believe, microtransactions like
Yeah.
skins, powered up armor. That's going to be locked behind microtransactions because Sony doesn't have a good track record with online games. So they need this to be profitable. They need this to make money. It
Right.
has to make money to offset the investment costs of an online ecosystem for Spider-Man. How are they
Right.
going to recoup those costs? It ain't going to be a single payment. It's going to be multiple transactions happening from this game. And the only thing that I would spend money on a Spider-Man Online would be that, which is power-ups for my Spider-Man suit,
Yeah, you're onto something here with what they are trying to create by having these online games, and it's evident by one of these leaks showing the possibility of this Spider-Man online game possibly coming out this coming year, 2024. But they immediately follow up on this timeline that they're showing of 2026 having an online Wolverine game, and then in 2028 having an online X-Men game. And I don't really know how much that makes sense either. It's like you've barely even justified the Spider-Man version of this. What are you going to do with a Wolverine, like exclusively Wolverine online game? Because like you and I just said, Spider-Man can make sense. You can make it make sense with the different Spider-Man. What the hell are you going to do with Wolverine?
Yeah.
And I guess, and then it harkens back when you bring in X-Men. Okay, we've got different X-Men. Maybe you can kind of make your own mutant. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be sick.
But Wolverine by itself, I don't really understand that. I don't get it.
Yeah, neither do I. And that also goes into, like you were saying, in terms of what the gameplay could be. Is it PvP? Is it PvE? Because I can't imagine a Spider-Man 2 that's player versus player. To be honest,
that doesn't. Yeah, it does not make any sense. And when I'm looking, it's funny when I'm looking at this timeline. I'm imagining like if your parents or grandparents were like coming up with like ideas for video games, like, oh, we've got Spider-Man now. Well, you can just have Spider-Man online. Oh, Wolverine's right around the corner. We can have a Wolverine online game. You can just play with your friends as Wolverine. That's kind of what I'm getting here, and it feels a little bit like grasping at straws.
Well, you know what this reminds me of? This actually takes me back to like the early 2010s, the mid 2010s, where if it was a game, doesn't matter what it is, it has to have an online mode.
And look how much of that failed.
Yeah. Yep.
And
moving into Sony's track records with online games, the cancellation of The Last of Us factions makes me even more nervous for these potential online universes that they want to build. Are they going to cancel Spider-Man 2 online as well? Listen, if they're going to cancel any of these onlines, they need to cancel Wolverine online. Like,
yes,
Spider-Man
agreed.
2 can make sense. X-Men makes sense, but Wolverine by itself, that just feels like a tacked on online thing to make more money. And I'm just, they're not getting mine. I'll be honest. Like, I know we play games on the podcast and we talk about it, but I see myself getting on board with Spider-Man 2 and X-Men Online, but Wolverine Online, that's going to be a hard pass for me.
And that's, you bring up a good point with the factions that just failed. So one of the big issues was that it was freaking empty. There was nothing in those worlds. There's nothing there to do. There was all these NPCs that you had to talk to, and then you go out and play the game, and there's nothing for you to find, and then somebody blows your head off, and it's like, why am I playing this? I that's what I'm worried about here. Like, you create a world, and then all it's going to do is it's going to hurt your main games. It's going to hurt the integrity of those games if you rush this and try to put it out there just to have an online component. You're going to bury yourself.
Yeah, and just having an empty world just for this, just for the sake of housing, 30 people? Like, I think about how many people could really be in New York City at one time and it be worth it? Like, where does the novelty wear off where you're just swinging with your friends and it's like, what now? Like,
Right.
I don't know, man. I don't want to continue to repeat myself on this, but like, I just don't have faith in Sony and multiplayer yet. So like, hey, maybe they know something we don't. Maybe they have a master plan, but there is nothing that I can harken back to and be like, oh, they did it awesome here, amazingly here. I can see how they can implement it, but I also am not the right person because I was on Xbox multiplayer basically as long as multiplayer has existed. So you would probably be more equipped to answer the question of an online multiplayer game in the Sony ecosystem.
Yeah, I've been playing certain online games on PlayStation since the PS3 when online play was free. and,
Back
and then yeah, we that used to exist. You used to be able to buy a game and go play with your friends and not pay a subscription fee. Missed that, but that's been dead since the PS4. But I used to play certain games, but the thing that I think we are kind of getting at here is that the games that I would play and that were good on the PS3, PS4 online were not exclusive Sony IPs. They were not something that Sony was building. They just supported a third party, which is fine. But you look at some of the top online games, and now that Microsoft has had these acquisitions, they basically own a lot of them. I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking about Blizzard. Holy crap. I mean, there's like 3 off the top of my head right there. You've got Diablo, you've got Call of Duty, you've got all of these things. I mean, Halo is still a great IP for online play, and it has been since Xbox has been a thing. So what has Sony done? I mean, when I was a kid, I played a game called Resistance, which was a really fun, I think it was more like a Gears of War comparison,
Yeah.
but it was fun, but they killed it. And that was really, really sad because it was a fun game. That's the only game that like really comes to mind that I'm like, I know that this came from Sony and it was good. I don't know another game that was that had online components that was a fun game. And maybe I'm just forgetting, but none of them really come to mind.
And that can harken back to Sony's business models as a whole, which we will get to. But before we do, I did want to bring up one last thing in terms of the games that we were seeing, and that was Ratchet and Clank being released. Do you have that slide up still?
Yeah.
When was it supposed to release?
So Rifts Apart came out in 2021, and then there's another one that's supposed to come out. I think it was 2029.
So that seems to be, other than its like secret new IPs in 2031 and 2035 ish, it just looks like it's all Marvel.
Yeah.
And to me, that's listen, again, I'm not the end is nigh guy that you see on the side of the road. I'm not yelling doom and gloom. I don't like to be that guy. But the X-Men games were for a while being presented as a secret new IP that Insomniac was working on. Nobody knew what that new IP was going to be. People were thinking literally anything but Marvel. So it's now revealed that new IP is X-Men. So now I see new IP 1 and new IP 2 for 2031 and 2035. And I can't help but feel that those are also going to be Marvel games.
Right.
And if it is, to me, that is a big blow for Insomniac to just be delegated to what is essentially Marvel's gaming studio division. And I think they're better than just working on Marvel. I think they can work on it and do an amazing job, as we've seen so far. But I would like to see them expand into brand new IPs that aren't existing, Marvel properties.
Right. No, exactly. It's almost as bad as Rare being burdened with the Kinect games.
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, honestly, you take a golden company who's put out some of the most untouchable games in history, and they get put on this dying platform.
Yeah, which granted, in Rare's defense, Sea of Thieves is incredibly fun, but look how long it took for Rare to like release a banger. Yeah, because there's a huge fan base for Sea of Thieves and a lot of current players even now. So I'm happy to see Rare doing better things. But I do digress. Insomniac being in the position to become just Marvel Studios, to me, is a little concerning.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially because they've been putting out such great games. That's great that they can do a great Marvel game, but I agree. It's like just because they can do a great Marvel game, that doesn't mean that that should be all that they do, which makes you start to question what exactly is Sony's plan here? Like what are we trying to do by making one of your biggest studios do nothing but Marvel games? What's the business approach?
Yeah, and honestly, their business approach as a whole is in question right now. Going back to the leaked slides that were in the Insomniac leak, which we have pulled up right here. And the first thing that just like pops up to you, like as soon as you look at these slides, is the leapfrog,
Right.
the industry shift.
If you are Sony and one of your biggest competitors buys up all of Activision and Blizzard, I mean, you have to prepare for that. You have to find a way to address this. Otherwise, they're right. This will be a leapfrog. They are going to jump and bound over everything that Sony has been building up with their house of cards. It's going to be completely dismantled if they don't do something about it. And like we were just talking about, one of the biggest components that I'm sure is making a lot of passive money are all of these online communities. When you have Game Pass, the content that's going to be provided to all these gamers is going to be access to all of these online communities, all of these online games. So what is Sony's response to that? And I think that that's been the big question, and we kind of see a little bit of how they've been addressing that and anticipating what is going to happen next in these slides. So when I'm looking at this, one of the first things that I appreciate them addressing is the fact that Microsoft is going to be building a mobile game store to compete with Apple and Google.
Which you called.
Yep.
From the beginning, when we were talking about the Activision Blizzard deal, which fans of the show, we wish so hard that we had started this podcast during that.
It's part of what inspired us to start this, because we love talking about this type of stuff. And we were talking, and I was like, Lewis, why is no one talking about the fact that Blizzard owns King, who owns Candy Crush? I'm like, Somebody might laugh at me for addressing this, but until they realize how much money Candy Crush makes.
Dude, those middle-aged mothers, bro, they be they be candying and they be crushing.
It's crazy, man. So, addressing mobile gaming is so smart on Microsoft's end, because they already have established games. They already have established online communities for these games. All they have to do is just support it. Is just take all of their resources and say, here you go. If you're on Game Pass, instead of playing freaking Jeweled every day to get your Game Pass points, now you might be playing Candy Crush. There's so many things that they can do with this. And Sony has no footing in the mobile community. The only thing that they had was the PSP, and that has basically all but died. And now they have this PlayStation Portal, but that's not a mobile gaming answer. It's really just being able to have a nice version of a Switch around your home. So it's not a mobile gaming answer. They don't have any footing in that, which Nintendo already has a huge stake in that. So now Microsoft is starting to compete with them in a different way, and Sony is about to get left behind if they don't answer that. It's going to be a huge thing.
And they acknowledge that their dated pillars, which I'm actually going to go ahead and read the dated pillars part of this slide. And this is straight from the company's mouth. It says, Sony's pillars are already dated and behind the competition. There is a lot to interpret with those words.
Right.
You are my witness. We have been talking about this for a long time. Everybody harkens on the exclusives, and now they're only on PlayStation. You know that I've said this. I said that will eventually bite them in the ass, because once you've sold all the PlayStations to every single person who's gonna buy them, you have officially pigeonholed your games into just the people that have the PlayStation.
Right.
And you are now excluding the people who don't have a PlayStation, which is millions of people who are on Xbox, who are on Nintendo, and who are on PC. So then they are starting to roll out okay, a year later, we'll go ahead and let PC have their time with these PlayStation exclusives, which they notoriously run terribly on PCs. Every time that a PlayStation game comes out on PC, everyone just hates it. They can't play it right. Even the modding can get a little rough on these games. So people are dissatisfied. So now you have dissatisfied PC gamers that aren't going to buy your game because they're notoriously bad. They're not going to go out and buy a PlayStation 5 if they don't want it. So now, guess what? They're not playing your games. They're not giving you your money. And I said it when Game Pass finally released and I saw the amount of games and what they were doing, which was, if you have a screen, we want Game Pass on that. That was the moment where I'm like, uh-oh, for Sony, because what that's going to do is, for the people that don't even want to buy a gaming console, if you have a phone, you can stream these games. If you have a computer, you can stream these games. There's Game Pass Online on the PC that gives you day and date games that
Right.
are Xbox exclusive, which in this very slide, Sony says they cannot compete with day and date. Their PlayStation Plus service, it's a year to the date of release where they'll come out on that service. And that's gonna shoot them in the foot, man. That's gonna shoot them in the foot, because we have a lot of people that just can't afford gaming as a whole. And guess what? $17-20 a month to get a giant library of games with Activision and Blizzard on there, pretty good price if you can just stream it on your TV or stream it on your phone.
Absolutely. You're hitting the nail on the head here. And I think that they have to see that their response to this needs to be massive. What's annoying to me is that they continually use the excuse that it's unsustainable if they are going to release their games day and date on their Game Pass version of PlayStation Plus. And basically what they're saying is, we're not going to do that. Why this is frustrating to me is you're cutting off a lifeline. You're saying, this is a possibility, I recognize that, but we're not doing it.
Yep.
So you recognize that this could be the answer, but you're too stubborn or stingy, greedy, whatever the word is, to just try it, to just try with some of your games and see what the response is. See if your subscription, if the frequency of subscriptions rises.
Yeah.
See if people want to buy your console more. But we're getting to a point now where Game Pass has shifted the market so much that I think that, and you and I talked about this a little bit, but I think we're getting away from the whole proprietary concept of consoles. I think that we're getting to a point where it's going to become obsolete, where if you just have your own gaming device, whether it's a PC or something universal, you'll be able to download your Xbox app or your PlayStation app or software, whatever it might be, and play the games with that. I could see that being in the next couple decades, that happening. And this is the beginning of it.
Well, I said it about, I know I keep saying people, but it's like I can finally say these things that we've been talking about for a long time. And I'm like, I called it when people would say like, so you know what, before I continue, Matt and I, in our younger and stupider days, participated very much so in the console wars, whose plastic box is better than the other. And,
Right.
So Matt is a recovering Sony pony, and and I am a recovering X-bot. And it sometimes, in conversations we'll relapse a little bit and jab at each other. But during those darker days and deep in our stupidity, Matt would tell me, look how many consoles PlayStation sold compared to Xbox. And my rebuttal back then, because I had very little as an Xbox One fan, but my only rebuttal to that, and it's starting to come true, was pretty soon it's not going to matter how many plastic console boxes you sell, because as long as there's people in your ecosystem for gaming and you make money, it doesn't matter if the PlayStation 5 outsold the Xbox Series X. And that was Microsoft's, and I'd say this now, jokes aside, very much like straight to the point. That is how Microsoft shifted from being third place in, I'm granted they're still third place, but they're trying to shift to the changing market before Nintendo and before Sony. So it's going to come a point, it doesn't matter how many PlayStation 5 sells if freaking Juan in Mexico, who doesn't have a TV and just has a cell phone, can play any of the Xbox games for a couple dozen pesos, or a couple hundred pesos. It's not going to matter if the PlayStation guy didn't buy an Xbox if he subscribed to Game Pass on his PC. I've
Right.
literally seen people say, and now the real dumb people who still console war, and it's funny that they don't understand what they're saying. They'll say, "Oh, well, what's the point of buying an Xbox? I'm never gonna buy an Xbox. Like, I have a PC. I just have Game Pass on my PC." And it's like, my brother in Christ, if you really give a damn about those console wars, you are now financially sustaining Microsoft, like,
Yeah.
because the deal is so good.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think that it's like that was the war back then. How many units were you selling in terms of consoles and games? And now it doesn't matter. But back then it did matter, and they were definitely kicking ass. The problem with Sony, and this is true across their cinematics, this is true across their gaming divisions, they don't know how to get ahead and keep ahead. They know how to do really good if they are already doing good. And that is why my headcanon has been that like their even numbered generations have been their best. The PS2 was an absolute golden era for Sony. The PS3 had arguably tanked. They got too big headed, and they charged more for the PS3 initially than the PS5 costs now. Let that sink in.
That's
initially.
crazy.
So, you turn around with things like that, and that wasn't the answer. They corrected course of the PS4, another golden era, insane games, new IPs, resurrected IPs, just all across the board. What you want from a gaming console. They had great original games, and they just, I think that they held on to that too much with this generation. And I don't remember if I addressed that in this episode or not, but you and I talked about this recently. All I have seen so far exclusive to the PS5 has been sequels. You've got a God of War sequel, you got a Spider-Man sequel, you got a Last of Us sequel, and it's like, that's fine. Being invested in a series is fine, but it's not enough. It's not enough to push a console to be competing with these other huge two giants, especially with the moves that Microsoft is making. And Nintendo is untouchable. They're just going to keep doing their own thing forever and never die, and they're going to be perfect forever. I
agree.
So
listen, if Nintendo survived the Wii U, they can survive anything.
Exactly, man.
And that's it, dude. That's it. I bought a Wii. We both had a Wii U, and let it be known, I'm on the record, the Wii U has one of the greatest lineup of first-party games ever made.
It does. It absolutely does. I will say that till I die. That was their worst generation of consoles, and it was still better than a lot that you see out nowadays from Xbox and Sony.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that being said, man, like, Nintendo's untouchable. They're in their golden era right now, and I can't wait to see what they do next. And they're they're gonna do their own thing. They're just on a side quest and have been since the Wii, and they're just gonna keep doing that, and I love it. I'm there for it.
We're recovering Xbox and Sony ponies, but we're still Nintendroids till the day we die.
Oh, absolutely. I will continue loving them no matter what. But that being said, dude, like, business model wise, Sony has to make a change. The ball is in their court, and they absolutely have to make a change because Microsoft is showing no signs of stopping, and they see that here. My worry is what I said earlier. It feels like they are just going to continue bottlenecking themselves in terms of what they can do from here.
Yeah. And it's a very borderline embarrassing thing with this leak for them, because now the world knows that they're sweating.
Yeah.
As the leader in the market, like, to the public, you need to be like straight face, like, we're good. We're all right. I'm not worried. And then right out of, like, we have a straight up slide dedicated to them being like, "Oh shit, we're in big trouble, bro. We're in big trouble." And I'm sure that this really affected morale for Sony as a whole. Like, now the world knows that we are shaking. And granted, if you were following the Activision Blizzard deal in the courts, they've been sweating. The world's been knowing that they're sweating about this deal. And at the time of recording, and even probably at the time of this video going live, Sony is still trying to fight this Activision Blizzard deal, even though they signed the 10-year contract for Call of Duty.
It's already done.
But they're still fighting it, man. And it's like, it's not a good look. It wasn't a good look for Jim Ryan, and that's why he took a quote-unquote early retirement. Sony has not had that sense that they are the undisputed market leader in the last couple years, because they're at every turn they're fighting this beast that is Game Pass, and they're still not figuring out how to make it work.
Yeah.
And like I know that ultimately, you know, you and I aren't running a multi-billion-dollar corporation. We're just two dudes hanging out. But if this little Mexican, if this big Mexican, if this big old Mexican can see the writing on the wall that putting only exclusives on your plastic console and nowhere else for an undetermined amount of time is hurting your brand, like why isn't Sony seeing that? Why
Right.
aren't you seeing that the more screens you can get these games on, the better off your ecosystem will be? Because from now until the end of gaming, it looks like it's all going to be about ecosystems.
Right. And I kind of have a feeling, bro, that they are still just tone deaf when you see a slide like this about Spider-Man 3 and what their proposition is for tackling Spider-Man 3.
Oh God.
So notoriously, it's no secret that Spider-Man 3 is going to be a hugely anticipated game. People buy the console just to play Spider-Man games. It's no secret that this game is going to sell well. And I think Sony knows that, because it seems that they're getting even more greedy and pulling one of the scariest, weirdest moves that they're proposing on this slide. Tell them about it, Lewis.
So if you look at this very complicated slide, it breaks down to essentially, in this case, it's Spider-Man 3. What Sony wants to do is split Spider-Man 3 into two parts, each retailing at $50. So what would happen is you get the game, you're excited for Spider-Man 3, you pay $50, and up front you're like, oh nice, it's only $50, not $70 like Sony initially started doing, because Sony was the first to start selling $70 games, and then Nintendo and Microsoft followed.
Right.
So then it's like, oh, don't pay 70, pay 50. You go home and you're playing this game, and it's part 1. So if you want the full experience, you have to buy part 2. I mean, nobody wants to play halfway through a game. So if you want part 2, a year later, it's going to cost you another $50. So that is disguising a savings of $20. Like, oh, you know, I only paid $50. Now you're paying $100 for a full game. And essentially, once several years pass, so in this case, part 1 comes out in 2027. In 2029, they will sell the whole package together at $60. If you want to be a holdout and say, you know what, I don't want to buy it in two parts, you have to wait to 2029. Sony gets $60 from you from an older game, and the development cost to make that happen is literally $0. It takes nothing for them
That's
to
disgusting.
put this game together on one disc for you to play. Matt, I don't spell doom and gloom all the time, but this is probably the first time in a long time where I am definitely feeling the doom and gloom for this industry.
Absolutely. No, this, like I said, this is like tone deaf proposition here for getting you out of the hole that you're in. This is not the answer. As a recovering, admittedly, a recovering Sony pony, I can tell you that if this does happen, I will be the holdout for 2029. I will miss the whole hype cycle. Everybody leaking all the I will see all of Spider-Man 3 on social freaking media, because I will not be supporting this. I will not be paying $100 for this game. All of the content can fit on one disc, and you're selling it twice. That's not okay. And the fact that you can show the entire world that your dev cost is $0 to make it happen, this is sickening. This is
gross.
Actually greed. This is nothing more than greed. I promise you, if this happens, I will be speaking out against it, and I will not be supporting it. This cannot be the direction that games go to. It can't.
And the scary part is, to me, Sony is the market leader, period. So if this model happens to work and they happen to make the money and they recoup the development costs and make millions and millions of dollars, then you're going to have other greedy companies doing it. You're going to have EA doing this. You're going to have Ubisoft doing this. Hell, you're going to have Microsoft and Nintendo doing this. We don't know. If this succeeds, this can change the landscape of gaming for, in my opinion, the worst. This is the worst timeline to live in terms of video games. Like you said, this is just greed. Nothing more,
Right.
nothing less. Listen, at this point, shoot us all in the foot and just charge us $80 out of the gate. If you really want to pay $80 for a game so you don't miss it, but it's an entire game, that's on you as the consumer, what you want to do with your wallet.
Right.
But I am pro consumer, I am pro gamer, but if you support this system, you are only going to hurt what we love the most, and that's gaming.
Right.
If you let Sony know with your wallet that that you're okay with this, we probably may never recover from this. And to be honest, I've always thought that Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo were too big to fail. But if this backfires on them and just like blows up in their face, and even the diehard Sony's fans are like, you know what, like I cannot in good conscience do this, it could sink them in the gaming division.
Absolutely. We already know their licensing terms. If they don't hit those 6 million sales of units for each of these titles, that could be a grounds for Marvel just saying, forget this contract, you know? So the fact that they have this total net sale proposition of $1.1 billion for one game is, you know, that was their goal. That was the goal right there, was to try to get that number. And I can't help but feel like this is that moment where the heart of gaming is just getting stomped on. This is not what I support as a gamer. This is not what I like to see and know I know that we don't even get the opportunity to know the behind the scenes for a lot of games, and we do get that privilege here, but we do know it, and it just shows me where Sony's head is at right now. And I don't know, for the first time in a very long time, I just have a bad feeling about being a Sony fan.
Yeah, and listen, I feel like I chose almost the wrong generation to have gone into PlayStation 5. Just like you got into Xbox during the Xbox One era, which was the worst era you could have possibly have jumped into.
It was bad.
I'm not feeling so hot about going into PlayStation at this time, because it looks like it's going to be a drastic change. And Matt, this doesn't even include the potential for DLC.
Right. It doesn't include anything that they're going to do with the IPs coming out after Spider-Man 3. All of the X-Men stuff, the Wolverine stuff. We haven't even talked about Venom, and that's supposed to come out between Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3. So, you know, we know what this makes me think of? It makes me think of when we were kids and the Twilight series was still coming out and the Harry Potter series were still coming out, and you get to the last movie and they're like, it's the last one, part 1, and then it's like,
Yep.
Oh, okay, so we're not done yet. And that's what this reminds me of, that they're just trying to squeeze out as much money as they can with some extra fluff and filler, but I don't even know that we're going to be guaranteed the fluff and filler here. And that's the super insulting part, is that I feel like I'm getting half a game, which in my opinion should be $35, and I'm paying $50 for it. That's crazy.
Well, Matt, and I purposely saved this for the end here. Part 1 for Spider-Man 3 is $50. Part 2 is $50. The combo in 2029 is $60. I purposely skipped over something. On there is a big old MP for $50. That, my friend, is multiplayer. They plan to sell multiplayer for Spider-Man 3 for an additional $50.
Oh my God. So I wonder if that is going to be a separate game, or if that is going to be like an added layer of content within Spider-Man 3. But regardless, this is still building off of the idea that their Spider-Man 2, whatever they're trying to do with the online there that they're proposing, is going to be successful. And it's also proposing that successful online play isn't going to hurt Spider-Man 3 before they even sell it.
Yep. And there is no way that this isn't hurting sales already, having this leaked. And you know what? There is a lot, like, we don't condone leaking, we don't condone hacking. When it happens, we're going to cover it. I mean, clearly, and we're coming towards the end of our discussion here. We aren't talking about the personal information that was leaked. Our condolences to Insomniac seeing their game leaked onto the internet. But you want to know something, and I mean this with all my heart, and I'm going to say it with my whole chest. I'm glad this information leaked. I'm glad that we are all prepared for what Sony will potentially do. And the optimist in me believes that they will probably see the backlash that they're already getting from this business model, and they will go ahead and pull the plug on it.
Yeah.
Because this is $150 to experience the whole package that is Spider-Man 3. I'll see you in 2029 when we review it on our podcast.
Yeah.
So
yeah, man, I can't imagine a world where $150 is what you need to pay in order to buy into not just the game, but the online game. You used to be able to buy Call of Duty and it would have a full campaign and it would have online regular gameplay and you could play zombies by yourself or online, and all of that was $60. I hate to be propping up Call of Duty as an example of what to achieve in the gaming community, but this is not the answer. And this is not going to get Sony out of their hole. Charging more money for the same games is not the answer. It will bury them. And it makes me sad. It makes me angry. It makes me sad. But I do hope that these amazing developers, Insomniac is an incredible studio. They put out awesome games with so much heart, so much detail, so much love. And that's what I love. I'm going to keep focusing on the games. If I'm going to try to delineate where I see that there's a great game and Sony making bad decisions. And that's my focus from here forward, bro, is I hate to be angry, especially as we're finishing up an episode, but I think that that's going to be my focus. That's going to be my silver lining here, is remembering that there are great games coming out. We just have to remember, as gamers, our great power and great responsibility here on the topic of Spider-Man, to vote with your wallet. Remember that a great game should not cost $100. It should not cost $150 when you add the online component. That's not how this should be. So talk to your friends about this. Don't sit idly by and accept this. It's not okay. Talk to your friends, be active in your community, vote with your wallet.
Absolutely. And on that note, we're going to go ahead and leave you guys with a little bit of positivity here. It's a scary time. It is, guys. It's a scary time to be a video game lover. It's a scary time to be a video game enthusiast. Heck, even just being a casual gamer can be a little daunting right now with how this industry is changing right before our eyes. We're witnessing history. But guys, it's not all about the doom and gloom. Just because a multi-billion-dollar company wants to make terrible decisions doesn't mean that there isn't beautiful games out there with soul, with passion, with love. Support your local indie developers. Support those indie developers that are out there in the grind with $100 in their pockets, trying to create art for you to enjoy and to love and play and to talk about. If there's an indie game out there that you've played that you want to talk about and you want to gush about, let us know. Tell us. We want to play these games that you love. So please, if you're still here with us, like, subscribe, comment. We're going to play the games that you want to play, and we are not going to support the bullshit that we're seeing right now. But at the end, thank you for lobbying up with us.
Thanks, guys.